Hello. I have no idea who the demographic for this video is, but regardless, you're here. So welcome to my discussion of Inferno, religion, and literature as discussed in Hozier's work. Because you clicked on the video, I'm assuming you know who Hozier is, unless you're my professor. But in case you don't, here is a brief summary. Andrew Hozier Byrne, who goes by the name of Hozier, is an Irish musician who got his start in 2013 with his first EP entitled Take Me to Church EP. But the song Take Me to Church didn't get any notoriety until it was featured on Hozier's debut album entitled Hozier. Given the title, religion is quite prevalent in this piece of work, so let us discuss the religious content in the song Take Me to Church. The first 4 lines of the song are, "My lover's got humor, she's the giggle at a funeral, everybody's disapproval, should have worshipped her sooner." This creates this desire to be separated from the church, and knowing the lover and religion parallel, he has this desire to worship something that his religion hates, which inadvertently creates this distance between himself and his faith. If the heavens ever did speak, she is the last true mouthpiece. He believes that if God existed, he would speak through this woman, and compared her to what he believes to be the bleak church, and that it spits out poison at those who attend, telling them that they were born sick and in sin. This girl is seen as more desirable than the church, and he thinks a better way to understand the meaning of life. In the next stanza, Hozier sings that his girlfriend invites him to, quote, worship in the bedroom, and that he's sent to heaven when he's with her. The main point of this song is that Hozier feels closer to God, or what is perceived as the good life, in the act of sex, not when he adheres to an established religion. Now, with the knowledge of Hozier's relationship with religion, we can discuss his newest 3rd studio album, Unearth. The piece opens up with a descent similarly to Inferno, entitled De Selby Part 1. He starts with, "At last, when all of the world is asleep, you take in the blackness of air, the likes of a darkness so deep that God couldn't start and couldn't bear." This is a direct reference to the 3rd Policeman, where the character De Selby is derived from. It is also a piece of literature I have not read, therefore cannot delve into the possible meanings of this. However, the use of both De Selby Part 1 and 2 is a way to mimic the stylistic choices that Dante made with his piece Inferno. Now, bringing up Inferno is a splendid segue to the first ring that we encounter through Hozier's album, which is Limbo, the outermost ring of hell. Limbo is saved for those who were not raised in Catholic backgrounds or died before they had the chance to be baptized. This ring is particularly interesting, as it is the only ring that you don't face physical punishment, only this intense feeling of loneliness and longing that is exemplified through this darkness and wooded structure that they inhabit. These feelings are what a life without God would feel like. In this ring, Dante meets many figures of the time to the likes of Aristotle and Socrates, which brings us to the 3rd track, First Time. And the key element that ties this track to the ring is the use of name-calling. The premise of this song is Hozier saying that something became alive inside of him once his lover said his name. In the case of baptism in the Catholic religion, baptism is ritual that names you before God. And as seen in the formerly discussed track, Take Me to Church, he perceives his partner as God and something to be worshipped, this being present in the lines, "Remember once I told you about how before I heard it from your mouth, my name would hit with such an awful sound, and the soul, if that's what you'd call it, uneasy alley of the body, it felt nameless, like a river undiscovered underground." Hozier describes this feeling of nothingness, or perhaps dread, once his name is called, until his lover says his name and it feels like a religious experience. The next song is entitled Franchesca, a fan favorite in the world of Hozier and Dante. This title is derived from the 2nd ring of hell, Lust, and is named after Franchesca di Rimini, whom Dante meets in the 2nd ring. Franchesca was a young woman who was being married off at the time to one of her father's businessmen, that decision of which she had no bearing over. Once the time comes for her to be picked up and married off, she meets who she believes to be her suitor, and that she is shocked that she experiences what can now be deemed as love at first sight. However, it is not the man she's supposed to marry. It is his hot younger brother, Paolo, and he is seemingly felt similar. However, the families have a contract about the marriage and nothing can be done in regards to aiding the lovebirds in their budding romance. Franchesca goes through with the marriage and attempted to avoid Paolo, which she could only do for so long. One night, they're up together reading a love story. One thing leads to another and they kiss. Francesca's husband walks in and kills them both. In hell, they're both quite close together, which in hell is particularly uncommon. Even if one has family, they don't find solace in each other's presence. In the case of Lust, Franchesca and Paolo's closeness is even more baffling due to the nature of the punishment. where those in the ring were thrown around in order to maintain distance. This violent action is due to them allowing themselves to be so close to one another. It is noted that Dante maintains this kindness for Franchesca, and Hozier does the same, spinning the gruesome tale into a story about being in love beyond the circumstances, and creates an anthem for true undenying love. The song is written from the perspective of Franchesca, with this defiant tone in the chorus. I'd tell them to put me back in it. I would do it all again. If I could hold you again for a minute, I'd go through it again. Which I find very admirable given the circumstances that Franchesca would have faced in her life as a 14th century woman. I Carry On isn't related to Inferno, at least to my knowledge. Istrus only appears in the Divine Comedy once as a parallel for Fear in the latter half of the second book within the Divine Comedy. However, Eat Your Young, we go straight back into hell. This shares themes with the third circle, Gluttony. It also has a close relation with the satirical essayist Jonathan Swift in his piece A Modern Proposal, where Swift suggests that the Irish, in order to combat poverty, have the poor sell their children to the rich in order to be cannibalized, which is where the title is derived, The Eating of Young. However, there are more modern elements of gluttony than Dante meant in Inferno. In Inferno, he was referring to gluttony in the utmost literal sense, of consuming more than your fair share of food or drink. Whereas Hozier discusses it through a socio-political lens, where he discusses the way that children are facing the brunt of issues that adults won't solve. Quote, if there's something to be gained, there's money to be made, whatever's still to come, get some. Through an American lens, I am interpreting that due to the lack of gun legislation that exists through lobbying, but it had been noted by Dante scholars and Hozier enthusiasts that this could be referring to the older generations stripping the climate of its resources and taking more than their fair share of environmental resources. However, the eating of young does take place in the ninth ring, where a man and his grandchildren are in the circle, and once his grandchildren learn that they won't be met with their bodies anytime soon, they offer themselves to be eaten by their grandfather, of which he denies. Once his grandchildren die of starvation, he explains that the hunger got control over him, and he ate their remains. However, that is clearly not what Hozier was referring to, but a fun tidbit nevertheless. The next two tracks, Damage Gets Done and Who We Are related to the fourth circle, allegedly. While I'm no Dante scholar, these parallels feel so loose, so I really don't have anything to say about them. The next song is Son of Nyx, which has no lyrics to analyze, but based on the title is related to the fifth circle, Wrath. The fifth circle takes shape of a muddy, swampy, tumultuous river called Styx. The wrathful are waist-deep in waters, ripping each other to shreds in a game of every man for himself, and the Smolin are submerged. In order for Dante and Virgil to get through, they must take a boat ride with the ferryman. The title Son of Nyx refers to a different ferryman by the name of Charon, who was in charge of ferrying the dead bodies across the river to Hades, whose mother is Nyx, the goddess of night. The next song, All Things End, is related to Circle 6 Hersey. The song describes the ending of a relationship you believe to be long-lasting, and the way that Hozier describes his partners, this can be a belief in a false god, which is the definition of hearsay. To someone from a warm climate, has little, if anything, to do with Inferno. It's a splendid love song, but I really don't have anything else to say. Butchered Tongue is a song portraying epic violence, that of which is discussed in the seventh circle. The song is a play on the phrase mother tongue and describes the loss of a language due to colonial violence. The second verse allegedly alludes to the Wexford Rebellion of 1798, which is an extremely gruesome period for Irish history, in which there was an insurrection against the British Crown in what was subordinate Kingdom of Ireland, which aided in Ireland gaining independence, therefore gaining their culture or mother tongue. I'm no historian, so it's out of my peripheral to gauge the accuracy of this allegory. The next song, Anything But, is based on the eighth circle, Fraud very loosely. It encapsulates that charming, charismatic trickster energy that feels fraudulent. The lyrics are skillfully crafted, giving the audience a false sense of comfort, with lines like, if I were a riptide, I wouldn't take you out, or if I was deaf, you'd live forever, which gives a sense of a loving, doleful song. However, it's more so saying, I don't want anything to do with you. Even if I was deaf and could provide you the worst, I wouldn't want to because I don't want to get close to you. Abstract, in parentheses, Psychomp, isn't based on one specific circle. It takes the listener through his recollection of watching his lover see a dead animal on the road, and her battle with the realization that everything is changing. Its eyes still glistening, cold wind up your nose, see how things change. While unrelated to Inferno, it's reminiscent of William Stafford's poem, Traveling Through the Dark. These parallels coming across with dead animals on the road and noticing the life it still had. As Stafford wrote, her side was warm, her fawn lay there waiting, alive, still waiting to never be born. I don't know if this was intentional or just an eerie coincidence, but it truly is one of my favorite songs on the album. The second to last song is called Unknown Nth, and it's based on the Ninth Circle where betrayal is being punished. This piece is discussing the betrayal of a lover, which is not discussed in Inferno, but regardless still borrows some of Dante's imagery. Like in the first verse, it says, swimming in the lake of fire or crossing the floor of any sea. It has language that evokes emotions of an epic journey. Hozier also makes a direct reference to the elderly man in the Ninth Circle, saying, you called me angel for the first time, my heart leapt from me. You smile now, and I can still see its pieces stuck in your teeth, alluding to the way that the man cannibalizing his grandchildren, which just makes the song sad and bitter, just like the Ninth Ring. The final song, First Light, allows us an escape from the hell that Dante has put us through. It's a love song with its origins about grieving a love with the anticipation of never finding it again, then the elation you feel once you do love again. This ending is similar to what Dante and Virgil come across. At the bottom of the Ninth Ring, they meet Satan, and behind him is this tunnel that leads Dante and Virgil into light. This album is truly one of my favorites of Hozier's. I find it so incredibly interesting that he was able to include all of these elements of Inferno and other literary pieces while retaining the fact that it isn't a concept album. This is all in good fun, so if you have any different interpretations, I would love to hear them.